Well, here we are. Again, it's Friday the 8th of May, and we're going to talk about Syria, because we need to talk about Syria because so much is happening. It's just amazing, and we haven't discussed Syria for a while. And if you hear the birds singing in the background, that's exquisite, because at least I can hear them. It's a lovely day here. The tension in Syria is fascinating. I mean, the extraordinary business going on. And for why? Well, Rami Makhlouf is cussing off the government. He's grumpy. He's an Alawite, of course. Unlikely anything is going to happen to him for his sins, although I wouldn't like to slag off the Syrian government and be in Syria. It's a risky thing to do, Rami Makhlouf. He is objecting to the fact that they want more of his money. His assets have already been frozen in Syria, but he's not too happy about that, is he? He doesn't want to give them more money. They want his money that's stored overseas. I mean, Rami Makhlouf has got oodles and boodles, it seems, overseas, and the Syrian government wants to take it away from him. He says, "I will only pay if the money goes to the poor." Well, that's quite reasonable, I would think. Yes, he's made 3 videos complaining about things. So his assets is frozen. They want his money from outside, and he's very close to the government. I mean, to the leadership. His children go to school with their children, that kind of situation, you know. Very close. But I wouldn't do what he's doing if I were him. But there have been others in the family have been doing similar things. Nobody's touching Rami Makhlouf. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're so strong now in Syria that they don't care. I knew a Kurdish boy that was arrested for putting up a Facebook post criticizing Bashar al-Assad, and although we tried to get him released or whatever, he was never heard of again. Difficult. He was a student, and he was arrested by the president of the Students' Union, who turned him over for being disloyal. Perhaps he was. But Rami is getting away with it. Government does need the cash. They are struggling. I mean, that said, they have confiscated huge amounts and frozen huge amounts, but like I say, now they want to take assets that are overseas. They are struggling in the sense that the big war chest of money they confiscated, it's all been used to write down the Syrian national debt and for other reasons, and there isn't this spare boodle that they would like to have. And Rami is less important. Rami Makhlouf is less important in Syria because the president's mother has died, and he was obviously close to the president's mother. So it's not such an issue now, having a go at Rami. And people in control in the family and in the government in Syria want more Sunni involvement in government. They want Asma's clan, you know, the Akras from Homs, to be more engaged and involved in the government. I mean, that's quite reasonable, I suppose. Rami Makhlouf is Alawite, of course, and he's been very useful to the government. I mean, very wealthy man. Traditionally, the Makhloufs are farmers, not warriors. Some Alawites are warriors, some Alawites are farmers. So Makhlouf family or farming family. Anyway, to be honest, Rami hasn't got much of a leg to stand on because he is inside Syria, and the people, he's not that popular inside Syria. Sorry, Rami Makhlouf. But nobody is very concerned about Rami hanging on to his money. Yeah, he's not actually that popular amongst the Alawites. It's such an unfair thing to say, and he's not that popular amongst the Syrians. He's not that popular with the Russians. People don't warm to him. I mean, do they warm to the ultra-wealthy in Britain? Possibly not. In times of hardship, we wouldn't warm to the ultra-wealthy in Britain, would we? We would be grumpy about them. And if somebody was trying to tax them, we might not, or take away their assets, we might say, okay, we're not going to rush to the barricades to support you. Anyway, it's interesting. Now, enough of that. Let's move on swiftly because there's so many interesting things. The Israelis bombarded Syrian positions in eastern Aleppo. That's another interesting little aside. I mean, there were the Iranian Revolutionary Guard man positions, or Revolutionary Guard were involved in these positions in eastern Aleppo. And of course, Israel has a history of being troublesome and difficult in this concept. But it's interesting that they got through the S-300 Russian defenses, air defenses for Syria, because in the past, two Israeli jets have been shot down. The Israelis say one, but the Israelis always have this habit of underplaying their war casualties. Two Israeli jets were shot down, in my view. Okay, I'm just saying. Syrians claim two, the Israelis said it was only one. Anyway, whatever. The S-300 Russian defenses have been very effective, and it's interesting that the Israelis have worked out a way to get around them, or presumably, because they have been bombarding those East Aleppo Revolutionary Guard positions within Syria. Not sure how helpful it is. I'm not sure what it achieves, but there you go. It's an Israeli approach at the moment. So what else can we say about the situation in Syria? Because there's so much to say, isn't there? You know the situation there. Millions of internally displaced people in Syria, and Turkey has come and Syria have come to an agreement in theory regarding border security in Idlib province. There's a 12-kilometer zone along which joint patrols are taking place. And then there's an additional buffer zone, 6 kilometers either side of the M4, which is the highway connecting Latakia and Sarakib. Not to be confused with the M4 in the UK, which is the big highway connecting London and Cardiff. No, this is the Syrians have their M4 from Alawite Latakia to Sarakib, the strategic town in Idlib province. And Sarakib was recaptured by the Syrian army in early 2020. And the situation in Idlib is very complex. It's an interesting scene. I mean, there are attacks on that highway, and obviously people are miffed at the fact that there are Turkish-Russian joint patrols. Syrian people are miffed at Turkish-Russian joint patrols on the M4 highway. They don't like it. They don't like it one bit. So, meanwhile, 5.6 million refugees have fled Syria or something like that. And 3.8 million of these are in Turkey. I don't know, people come up with these figures. Snatched out of the air, really. They're meaningless figures. Lots of refugees. Millions have fled Syria, and millions of these are in Turkey. I could say 3.8 million of these are in Turkey. You just guess, really. And obviously, the Turkish-Greek border is hell on earth with people trying to get into Europe. And at least that's how Syria Relief described it. So the political situation is what the political situation is. But Syrians are really not that happy with the joint patrols and with the way things are going. They don't like the rapprochement between Turkey and Russia. But most of Syria is back to normal, except Idlib, of course, where the fighting goes on, and the Kurdish areas in the northeast where America so cruelly betrayed the Kurds. Yeah, and COVID, there is COVID. It's disrupting hospitals in Idlib, and there have been patients with COVID-like symptoms. So everybody treats Syria differently. Russia treats Syria as a client state. Iran has a major has a long-term role in Syria, or regards itself as having it. The US still has the base in Tanf and controls much of oil-rich Deir ez-Zor province, and wants to see some sort of process in Syria that leads to stability, in so much as the US have any policy. So the future will be full of surprises. But I mean, COVID-19 has moved the focus away from Syria and focus away from the Middle East, certainly in the United States. Russia also has problems at home. Ultimately, Idlib province will fall to the Syrian government, and there we are. The Omanis are trying to do some peace-building role in Syria. That's nice to see. They've been done such good work in Yemen. They're doing less of it now there, but more in trying to take up the baton in Syria. So what's the subtext on all of this? Well, the subtext is Russia is grumpy about Bashar al-Assad. Russia is grumpy about the fact that Bashar al-Assad is grumpy about Russia. And they feel where's your loyalty? We've done everything for you. We've bombed cities flat for you. And where is your loyalty at this time? There have been articles in the Russian press, in Pravda and Russia Today as well, grumpily criticizing Bashar al-Assad. You would think that his position was shaky, but no, it's not shaky. It's not shaky. Russia is grumpy about the fact that Bashar al-Assad is not being very cooperative in regard to the Russian-Turkish alliance to deal with the stability in northern Syria. And what do they expect? Of course, he can't be very cooperative about the fact that the Russia and Turkey have got an alliance. Turkey is a big problem to Syria. 20 million Alawites in Turkey, so maybe Syria will become a big problem to Turkey if Turkey doesn't watch out. It can turn around and bite them. But Turkey is a big problem for Syria, and it's not surprising that Bashar al-Assad is expressing his grumpiness. And it's not surprising that in turn Russia is expressing her grumpiness. But there is no chance that Russia can pull the rug out from under Bashar al-Assad. I mean, there is nobody else. Bashar's brother doesn't talk to the Russians. Well, he's not allowed to, I suppose. It's another issue. You know that Syria is run by Bashar and his brother. Bashar's brother runs the military. Bashar al-Assad runs the rest, everything else. And in theory, the military as well. But his brother has a major role in looking after the military. But that is it. His brother's not allowed to creep in on political issues. He's not allowed to talk to Russia. So Russia talks to Bashar al-Assad, and there is no one else for Russia to talk to. And so what it means is that they have nowhere else to go. Bashar is very strong. He doesn't care what Rami Makhlouf says. Rami Makhlouf will have to watch his back, no matter how invincible he may think he is. Bashar al-Assad is really fine. He has nothing to worry about. And so if he decides to criticize Russia or criticize Turkey or criticize the Russian-Turkish alliance, nothing Russia can do about it. Russia has to just go on supporting Syria and endure its troublesome client state. Interesting times. Will things get better? Yes, they will. Will it come easily? No, it won't. The people of Idlib will suffer and suffer and suffer. The Kurds will suffer and suffer and suffer. But there we go. That's America's fault. America betrayed them. Leastways, that's how I see it. Shouldn't say that, should I? I don't know. Maybe it's very judgmental. I'm supposed not to be judgmental. I try not to be judgmental. I tell you what, though, let me say something in America's defense. Any other U.S. president, yes, any other U.S. president, we would have had war in the Middle East by now. We would have done. We'd have had war with Iran. We'd have war, more U.S. involvement, more U.S. bodies coming home in bags. So, whatever his flaws, President Trump has made the Middle East more peaceful in so much as he has decided not to exact retribution when he could have done. And so, credit where credit's due. sorry to say anything nice about President Trump, but I can't help it. We've got to be honest about these things, haven't we? I mean, I don't approve of his behavior. Gosh, I don't approve of his behavior of COVID-19. That's another whole issue. But anyhow, at the end of the day, there's a breathing space in the Middle East, and between President Trump and COVID-19, this breathing space has been delivered, and maybe it gives us a chance to reassess things and think of a better tomorrow. I hope so. I hope for Syria it'll be a better tomorrow, and perhaps it will. At least there's not quite as much death and destruction just at this moment in time as there has been for years and years and years. God bless poor Syria. Thank you one and all. Bye.